camera off, we're now recording this review session. It'll probably help if you can open Canvas. I don't know if your devices will allow. If you're on a phone, it's not going to work out. But if you have a desktop or a bigger screen, it might be possible for you to check Unit 11 while we're talking here. Everybody reviews differently. I know that you're not flush with time, but theoretically, if you've been following my review instructions, then you've beefed up your notes a good bit. You should have spent about a week looking through all the study guides and making sure that you had everything finished. You should have spent about a week fishing around through other sources of content to help you fill in your notes. And you should have spent about a week watching videos and taking the multiple choice practice exams so that you could figure out some of your weaknesses. Hopefully, by now, you've added about as much as you're going to add to your notes. So now we got to kind of start getting ready for this exam. I want you all to know that there's one more review session coming. Sunday night. I'll announce the time via the notification app. Sometime on Sunday night, I want to give you like the final pep talk. That Sunday night one is really, most students find it to be very helpful. I'll remind you of what to expect on the exam, how to get ready, what to focus on Monday, how to get yourself from your bed to the exam Tuesday morning. So this Sunday we'll talk about like the actual head game final prep day. But right now, as you can see on my shared screen, now we got to get some practice with the actual nuts and bolts of answering questions. I'm assuming you can read, so I'm not going to read this shared screen to you. If this was a recording, you could just pause it and watch. If you're at home, you've already had like 5 minutes with this screen on. I'd like you to spend a few days doing some practice FRQs. Remember, this is not writing out full answers. I do not want you to spend 22 and a half minutes per FRQ at this point. Right now, the goal of the FRQs is just to quiz yourself. Like, you'll see the question, and I just want you to like circle the action word, underline the key term, and then just see what you remember about it. I'm guessing you'll have like an average of 3 or 4 points on each of those, which would be ballpark enough to pass. If you can get 5 or 6 or 7 points on each of those, great. Start with the newest questions. So 2022. And it helps if you can print them. And I know that that's not really viable for a lot of you. If you can't print them, maybe use PDFs so that you can mark them up, blow them up a little bit, circle the action word, underline the key terms, and then just see how much you can generate. It's kind of cheating. I've reused a few of the questions. So if you see one and you're like, oh, we did this in Jose's class, it doesn't really count that you know it all. But for questions that you haven't seen before, it's a really good activity to kind of start picking at your brain. They'll ask you something about energy, and you're going to be like, yeah, I kind of know about the coal part, but not the gas part or whatever. Just quick outlines, no sentences, don't use a timer, and you can have your notes open, but once you've looked at your notes, you've kind of cheated. So it doesn't really matter at that point. The goal for you is to start poking at your memory, and then if there's stuff that you truly don't know about, like, holy crap, this isn't in my notes, Jose never taught me this, then it's a good heads up. Do a quick search on the internet, add it into your notes, and then go to the next free response question. I don't know. Maybe with looking through your notes and doing a quick little internet search and adding some stuff into the relevant unit packet, maybe 10 minutes per question max. The actual like reading and outline should be fast, like a minute. If you don't remember, just move on. Don't like make yourself think, oh, I gotta get a perfect score on this, because nobody's gonna see it. The score doesn't matter. Once you start to stress out, you get stupider. The part of your brain that's looking for the information makes a mess of all the notes. So you can imagine if, like, somewhere on this desk, I've got an important piece of paper and I get flustered, I'm just going to sweep my desk and just scatter everything everywhere. Same thing happens in your brain. Once you start to stress out and you're like, dude, I know this, I know this. Once you get that frustration, you actually have worse recall from that point onward. So stay calm. Give yourself about 1 minute per outline and get through as many free response questions as you can over 3 days. Start from 2022 and work backward. 2021, 2020, 2019, 2018, go backward. If you had 10 hours, you could do the entire history of the AP exam for all I care. Everything's on Canvas. I'm pretty sure that I have everything on there going back to 1998. For most of the modern questions, you can search for the answer key. It helps if you Google College Board AP Environmental Science 2019 scoring guidelines is the way that they label the document, scoring guidelines, and they're usually published as a PDF. So College Board scoring guideline, AP Environmental Science, PDF, and the year. That might help you figure out the stuff that you didn't know, and you can modify your notes accordingly. Work with other people, it's great. Try to go fast. Then I'd like you to spend 1 day on the experimental design. Listen, give me a thumbs up if you're listening right now. I got to make sure that everybody's here for this. Thumbs up if you're listening. The experimental design document has a privileges problem. I don't know what's up with that. I have it turned on to share like everything else in Canvas. There's different types of sharing. It has the same type of sharing as all my documents, but for some reason that document is broken. The permissions are broken. So some students are denied access to the document. You can email me to request access and I'll try to respond and give you specific personal access to you. But please write yourself a little note somewhere. The experimental design worksheet is also like page number 7 or 8 inside the main review packet. So if you go to the Unit 11 page in Canvas where all the review stuff is, there's a section about how to do experimental design and there's a document. And if that link doesn't work for you, go up a couple of blocks and you'll see the main review packet. Okay. Experimental design is a new type of question. I believe they asked 3 in the first 20 years of the exam. And then they started doing it every year, I think in 2018 or 2019. The questions are not very difficult. You do not need to like write a procedure or like invent a hypothesis or like it's not a junior high school science lab write-up. It is not. Instead, they're going to say like which is the variable that you manipulate, which is the variable that you're going to measure. What type of data would you collect? So remember to pick a variable that is measured, usually in numbers. It's pretty attainable. And my experimental design worksheet has like 8 steps. And if you practice like a few of the experimental design questions with that sheet in front of you, I think you'll have a huge leg up on other students nationwide because it's a new type of question. But I wrote the experimental design worksheet with the guy who writes the questions about experimental design at the College Board. And that worksheet that I gave you access to is used by the people who train College Board writers. So I think it's a pretty good cheat sheet. Spend one day working on those types of questions. Then, as you can see on the screen, one day doing math problems. The main review packet has a cluster of problems you could practice. Toward the end of this week, maybe on Thursday, you could make a date with your math teacher to like visit seminar and ask them like, yo, this is the type of question that I'm struggling with. You should practice some scientific notation stuff, some area volume stuff, millimeter, centimeter, meter, rule of 70, of course. Yeah, there's some anyway, in the main review packet, there's some math practice. And then by next weekend, the only thing that you should be touching is your own notes. We do this thing called laps, where you go through your notes with a writing utensil, and it'll say like assignment 1.1, tragedy of the commons. It's the first thing you wrote down. And then you can ask yourself, like, tragedy of the commons is you can't share without rules because people will rationally seek to maximize their benefit, knowing that the cost is shared by everybody else. And you look and, like, yeah, I got it. So once you remembered the information, you cross it off in your notes. Then you'll get to some vocab term. And if you're like, yeah, I don't remember that, then you have to look and read it. And because you've looked to read it, you don't cross it off. These are called laps. So you go through and ask yourself, do I know this? Do I know this? Do I know this? And all the stuff that you know on Saturday, you'll remember by the exam. So if you know it, cross it off. If you don't know it, maybe you'll pick it up the day after. On Saturday, try to go through all your notes, like 10 units. Cross off everything that you know, and then put them away. That's a full day of work on Saturday. Sunday, when you come back, let's say half of that has already been crossed off. So you're not going to read Tragedy of the Commons anymore because you're telling yourself you remember it. You're going to go to that vocab term, and maybe this time you remember it. Now you cross it off. That second lap, let's imagine, is going to take about half as much time. And finally, by May 1st, the day before the AP exam, hopefully you're down to like just the nitty gritty that's hard for you to remember. These are called laps. Do I remember something? If you remember it, when you look at it like, yeah, I got that right, then you cross it off. This is the 7-day plan to get you to the exam. Practice FRQs, experimental design, math review, and then start doing laps through your notes, crossing off everything. I got a question in the chat. Hold on. Okay, so somebody asked me about calculators. I recommend bringing calculators. Historically, the AP exam guaranteed you wouldn't need them, and they weren't allowed. Then it got so heated and people got in fights at some schools, they're like, all right, fine, they're allowed, but you don't need them. Now that everybody's like, yeah, just bring a calculator. So you can use pretty much any traditional TI, whatever, generic calculator you'd use for high school, you can take on the exam. they kind of help with the scientific notation, but if you know how to write scientific notation on the calculator, you're probably good enough to do scientific notation on paper. I don't know. Okay. I want to show everybody one thing really fast. And then I'll check with you for questions. Let me show you one thing. Okay, so here's that Unit 11 page in Canvas. You can see the first video, the second video, the third video. Tonight's video is going to go here, and then our final video will be sometime this Sunday. Here's all of my last year's videos. Here's the stuff that I recommended before and all this other stuff. Now, here's that main review packet that includes the experimental design checklist. If this link doesn't work for you, you can find it in the main review packet, same document. Here's a list of some of the questions that did ask for designing an experiment. There's another one in 2022. I haven't added it here. Here's all the FRQs from back in the day, some of the newer ones. Remember, when you practice the FRQs, you don't write out the answers. The main review packet has the math review. And then if you want to F around, here's a bunch of other FRQs. There's also, they're all assigned to you in AP Classroom if you'd rather do it on a computer. Here's some other sources of cramming if you want to use like digital flip cards. I believe you can use a calculus calculator. Yeah, like if you mean like a graphing calculator, that's fine. The two rules that they have about calculators is they can't have Wi-Fi connectivity and they can't have a keyboard. I don't think many of you have calculators with a keyboard, and I don't know if anybody uses Wi-Fi for calculators. Okay. If there are other questions, please put them in the chat now. I gotta say, when I stopped the video last week, I got like a half hour of excellent questions that I wish I could have recorded the answers. So if you have questions, please take a minute, write them in the chat. After we go through those questions, I will stop the recording. But if you have a question, please ask it in the chat. Nobody's asking. I'm going to stop this recording. The Sunday meeting is probably at 8, but I'm not certain. I'm not certain yet. I got to negotiate with my wife. She's going out of town, and actually, I got to negotiate with my son because I think I'm single dad from Thursday to Monday. So I really don't know about the time. Okay, I'm going to stop this recording now.